Alrighty, guys, we are, here in the underground. We are a rebel sect called the Gentle Lads, and, we are hiding from the Empire. Welcome to episode 124 of Project Geekology, and this week we are covering the first 6 episodes of Andor Season 2. And I know I said, rebel sect of Gentle Lads, it's a little inside joke that we have off of the podcast. Now it's on the podcast, so you guys have joined us. But yes, I am one third of your host, Anthony, and joining me as always is
Dakota. And yeah, Gentle Lads is the name of our text group, and I will be sure to change that as soon as possible because we have to keep you guys guessing. Yeah, I'm really excited to be talking about Andor Season 2, the first 6 episodes. A lot of Rebel Sect activity, and yeah, my name's Dakota, and I'm joined as always with...
Rich. Glad to be with you guys. Honestly, my Rhydonium's running a little low, and I just needed a little bit more of a fix of Andor, so happy to be talking about episodes 1 through 6 with you guys.
Now I'm kind of upset that I didn't start the podcast in my Saw Gerrera voice.
That's pretty good.
Well, you can do that next week.
Rhydonium! It's like my sister.
That was wild. I was very confused. Like the first time around, I was like, wait, what's going on? Man, this guy's... We find a lot more about Saw Gerrera.
We do. But before we get into that, it's been 2 weeks. We had a little bit of a week off. But now we are back to it strong with Andor Season 2. Like I said, it's going to be the first 6 episodes this week, and then we'll do the remaining episodes next week. Too bad we didn't wait, on Rogue One, because we could have led up to Rogue One. But we already did a Rogue One episode. So after you listen to this season, you can go back to the Rogue One episode and go and listen to that. But yes, like I said, it's been 2 weeks. I'm going to go to Rich. Rich, what have you been up to? And we do know that it's been a lot of baseball, but what else have you been doing outside of baseball?
I shockingly do have outside of baseball news, although there was much baseball. I do want to highlight that. But I got, for Father's Day, my son and my wife got me this. It looks like an action figure, but it's actually like a kind of piece of plexiglass almost that has the image inside of it. So it just has me, and it says Gamer Dad. And it says like a normal dad, but much cooler. And then the controller next to me has my son's name under it. So I got that. And my son's idea was to grab me a N64 controller that connects to the Switch. And I promptly schooled him in Mario 64. I'm not going to lie, the pure jubilation. So he immediately was like, this is much faster than Mario Kart Deluxe. Like he felt that even the 50 cc's was faster for some reason. And man, I remembered those. I wasn't sure if I would remember the shortcuts and where I needed to drift and where I had to stop drifting, but it all came back. You just
fell back into step, yeah.
It was
impressive.
Holding that controller, it was different. Like it felt different than playing Mario Kart Deluxe. I really enjoyed it, and then I did something a little crazy. We've gotten my son a number of things for graduation. He's graduating 5th grade this year. Even though it's just kind of a legal state requirement that everyone has to go through because it's not much of an accomplishment. It's not like you have a choice. But anyway, we got to celebrate him.
Yeah, you can't get held back in New York State anymore at that early of an age.
Yeah, but he's been talking about the Switch 2 a lot. And I was
going to ask about that.
I found a tracker. I started following a Twitter account, and there was news that they were dropping it on June 11th. So at like 11 o'clock, luckily my classes are pretty much winding down. The rumor was from 9 to 12. So I just basically was just spamming the reload button. And as luck would have it, I got myself a pickup model. So it should be arriving on Friday. By the time you guys hear this, I'll hopefully already have it. And unveil the news to Charlie. So I'm very happy to find out that the controller is compatible with the new one, because I was like, oh no, what if it's not compatible? But it all is, and I'm very excited. I'm going to be driving to Yonkers to go grab this, and luckily it's not a GameStop in Texas, because I don't know if you guys heard the news, but it was something like $1.6 million or more than that. Switch 2s were stolen. A shipment was hijacked on its way to GameStop Texas. So something like 280,000 units or something were stolen. And just imagine if you had a pre-order and you were about to go pick that thing up. That's crazy.
That's wild, actually.
Yeah, that is actually.
I did not know that. That is awesome, though. It's amazing that we hold like these things like N64 controllers as like pinnacles of creation, but it's like one of the least ergonomical controller designs.
Charlie was like, "How do you hold it?"
Terrible.
He's like, "How do you hold it for
thing ever.
racing?" And I'm like, "Oh, you gotta hold it in the middle here, buddy. It makes sense."
But what an era of gaming! Like it was such a fun time.
I cannot wait till I play him with what is it called? Slappers only in GoldenEye. Just the good old Slapfest GoldenEye session, and then you pick Odd Job because he's slightly shorter than the other guys, and you have an unfair advantage because their chops go over your head. I can't wait to spam him that way. Like I'm so excited to use my knowledge to once again assert my gaming dominance in the household.
Yeah, but can you beat him in Diddy Kong Racing?
Oof. I mean, that was one of my favorites. I'm not going to lie. I really loved using the helicopters in that game. Loved the Diddy Kong Racing, man. Oof.
Yeah, I think that like one of my favorite things about it was Mario Kart was fun, but Diddy Kong Racing had like all these different types of vehicles. They had like airplanes, these like hovercrafts, regular vehicles. Like it would change up. And so like that was one of my favorite things. And then you had a bunch of like characters across Rare that you could play. That was fun, but yeah, a good tracker. I don't know if I know that you said that you had been following a tracker, but there is a good one that I had used in the past called Now in Stock, and I had actually used that one to snag a PS5 way back when.
Oh yeah, that one. I think I used that one because I had it. I had that one going on the computer the entire time I was searching for a PS5 on the desktop. And like that was during like pandemic time, so I was teaching from home and everything. And one late night, my wife is sitting in front of the computer, and I hear that beep. Look, it could have been interpreted as other things, but I launched her from that chair essentially. I jumped like the Black Panther and just jumped to get that. I'll never forget the feeling. I mean, those were days where I was waking up I had to teach at 9 or like 8:30, and I would show up at Walmart in Yonkers or something because I heard rumors that there were 3 available, and I would walk into the store. They would just be like, "It's not available." I'm like, "Thank you, have a good day," turn around and then get back, jump in front of the computer and be like, "Hi guys, sorry I'm a couple minutes late, just got back from Walmart." They're like, "Did you secure the bag?" I'm like, "I did not, guys, I did not." So
the funny thing is that as much of a gamer as I am, I don't care to do all that. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but no.
You're just gonna wait till it's in stock.
I'm gonna wait until I can get one. That's just my thing. And Dakota knows, like, I am the gamer of this podcast, or like for the longest time, like, I talk about all the time. That's my thing. You like where you guys are like watching stuff, I'm filling that time gaming. But when it came to the PS5, I wasn't gonna try to go to some back alley behind Walmart and do a handshake deal to get a PS5. I'm not doing all that. I saw that they had them available to buy at GameStop one time. I happened to go online. I ordered it and picked it up and called it a day. Other than that, I'm not doing all that. I'm sorry. I just don't get into the FOMO like that. When I get the PS5, I get the PS5,
Well, to be fair, I can't remember what game it was. There had to be a wrestling game or something. There's always a reason, or maybe it was FIFA. There was a reason why I needed to get the PS5, not because I wanted the PS5, but because I think that FIFA wasn't releasing one game. Maybe it wasn't FIFA. There was a game that was not going to be releasing on PS4 anymore. Maybe it was Marvel. And with the Switch, honestly, the only reason I did this is because of Charlie. So
yeah, no, I get that.
This one, I actually was like telling him, like, dude, the launch titles are weak. I mean, Mario Kart's going to be fun, but like then it's over. That's it. Like, you don't need to rush to get this, blah, blah, blah. but he's been watching all those videos on. He's got watches YouTube just as much as the rest of us. So he's like, oh, and the way the controllers go, like and I'm like, dude, you got to stop watching reviews of the console. You're gonna go crazy.
Did you get the Mario Kart World bundle one? Or
Yeah.
Okay, that honestly, that's a smart play right there.
Yeah,
because Mario Kart World is $80 on its own, but when you get the bundle, you're getting it for $30 cheaper.
Ooh, I'm glad that happened. Yeah.
So the system itself is $450. The bundle is $500. So mind you, you buy the $450. Say you get the $450 bundle, and then you buy the game. You're spending that extra $30.
And gentle lads, I left this part out. You know what happens with the Switch One, right? This guy right here just got a new Switch One to play. So it's the very first hand me up in my family that's going to happen, where he's going to hand me up the Switch.
Oh, I like that.
He doesn't know this yet, but yeah, it's mine.
So I just find it so funny that we've gotten to a point in like tech cycles that, we have to make back alley deals like they're like drugs, my precious Rhydonium. So yeah, it just makes you wonder.
It makes me feel like I was part of the rebellion, honestly. Like I feel like I could be hanging out with Andor and Bix and Sintra, not Val. I don't like her much.
She's a little harsh. I feel bad for her on occasion, but she's a little harsh.
What were you up to the last couple of weeks, Dakota?
Last couple of weeks. Yeah, because it's been 2 weeks since we recorded last. But, not a whole lot. In my personal life, my, secular work, I am training right now. I'm doing like a bunch of test prep for my journeyman's license. So I'm excited about that. That should be coming 2 Saturdays from now that I take that test. And so just a lot of like studying, learning diagrams, understanding Ohm's law, stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of like last minute, not a lot, for Rich this isn't a lot, but for me it is a lot of baseball games. I've just been supporting my local New York teams. One team won and the other team lost. But I enjoyed myself. Baseball is fun. I went to 2 games. It wasn't a Mets versus Yankees game. It was Yankees versus Red Sox. They won, and I went to a Mets game, and they lost. But the food was better. The food was better than Yankee Stadium. That's what matters in the end.
I know you made Rich proud by going to see the Mets.
I will also make Rich proud by announcing that I had 2 hot dogs at the Yankee Stadium, and I had 2 hot dogs at Met Stadium. The 2 dogs at Yankee Stadium were the worst glizzies of my life. Like they were it was like pre-made, like wrapped hot dogs, and the buns were like squished, like they were like rolled into little burritos. I was like, what is this? This is the worst. The condiment station sucked. So that was rough. But I had a pretty good hot dog, 2 hot dogs actually, at Met Stadium.
And listen, if you're ever feeling randy and you want to go out on a Tuesday, all right, on Tuesdays they got $5 dogs, and if you hang with me, I have a 15% discount. All right, so that's even. You're getting better glizzies at a discount price.
Wow, it's like $4.25 a dog. That's crazy.
I am honestly wowed that you were able to do that math. Never in a million years would I have I just get really happy whenever I use the discount. I'm like, oh, look at that. I never have a conception of what 50%.
I actually don't know if that math is correct. I'm going to look that up really quick. 5 times 0.15. Yeah, I was right. Wow.
Whoa.
$4.25 a dog. Plus tax, baby.
You can't beat that, Anthony. You got to come up here, man, just for the glizzies on Tuesdays.
Those are it's actually really good.
Fly up from I'll pick you up from LaGuardia. It's right outside the stadium, all right? And then we'll go grab some dogs, and then,
And then maybe watch some people throw a ball around. Anyway, Anthony, what have you been up to this past couple of weeks? Tell me.
I'm going to be honest with you, though. Like, hot dogs are, like, not even my favorites. Like, if I'm at a party and there's a choice between hamburgers and hot dogs, I'm going burger all the time.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm a burger guy.
Let me ask you a question, Anthony.
He's not in New York.
He's not in New York. You're walking through Washington, D.C., you're walking through Appalachia. You're walking through Vegas, all that have been hit by nuclear bombs, when you're walking around those locales, you know what you never see? You never see a hamburger. But you know how many hot dogs I've seen in Fallout 76, my friend? The structural integrity is fine. Here's the thing about hamburgers. That person at that party, do you know if they know how to cook a burger the right way? What if you get slightly ill from the temperature of the meat? Hot dogs
or
already cooked.
the opposite. You can be like having, a cookout with my father-in-law, and you get served some hockey pucks.
There you go. But hot dogs, you can't really. They're already cooked, man. They're already cooked. You don't even need to really warm them up, man. You can just eat them.
I'm sorry, man, but it just. I mean, and honestly, like if you're gonna go Fallout, dude, there's still Brahmin. You can ground that beef, but
that's true.
But yeah,
all right.
So what I've been up to these past couple of weeks is that. So I had a con that was sandwiched between this.
Was it a long
this
con?
hot dog?
No, sandwiched between like these 2 weeks.
Oh,
like I got to go to Otaku Fest.
Nice. Tell us.
But yeah, I had Otaku Fest. It's con time. Cons are kicking in. The tickets for this convention, I actually had won them back in February by cosplaying Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, that's right. I've seen that picture.
Clever.
Best show on
yeah,
Disney
man. I always, you know how it is, man. I always have a good time going to conventions and stuff, man.
Yeah, you're definitely a con man.
I am a con man. That cons.
You should come up to NYCC, man. I just procured tickets. The fam and I are definitely going on Friday up here.
Oh, have they started selling tickets yet?
Yeah. I secured the Pro Pass or an Educator's Pass, and then they got the Friday passes.
Wow.
Nice.
So
I have been wanting to go to New York Comic Con. It's been a while. But I went up there and I went with Dakota and Jen one year.
Anthony, listen, we're thinking about going as Thunderbolts. Okay? I was going to be Bucky. All right? My wife is going to be Yelena. My son is going to be... Who do you want to be? I'm blanking out right now. But we need a Red Guardian. Oh, yeah. He wants to be Sentry. You could be Red Guardian, man. I've seen you bald. Like, I think it'll look good.
And I can be the leader.
Let's go.
Not the leader. Dakota, all you have to do is just get stung by a dozen of bees. And,
Jen could be that Betsy that
look like him.
Who's Betsy? She's got some relation to the Hulk. Betsy Ross somehow is related to Hulk. Maybe Jen could be Betsy Ross. I don't know.
Somehow.
Dude,
some way.
Something about there's some relationship to Hulk. I don't know what it is. Is that his estranged daughter?
No, that's the nurse that stuck him with Gamma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she sucks.
Well, maybe we should... sorry, but I think we've deviated. All
right, go ahead. Tell us about OtakuCon. Or Otaku Fest, I'm sorry.
Otaku Fest, man. Yeah, dude. Just straight otaku-tastic, man,
So, for those of you who don't know, this is a anime-themed convention. Correct?
Yeah. You can... There's always going to be stuff that's not anime related there, but it's definitely a little bit more geared towards that. When you think of otaku, obviously that's, they're using that Japanese word that kind of describes somebody who's like obsessive over, nerdy stuff. And yeah, man, it was good. They had moved it back to the original convention center that it was at. I guess it had outgrown it, and so they tried to like move it to another one, but that one was way too big for it, and I think that it costed a lot more money, so now they moved it back to its original space. The problem with the last time when it was in that space, I think they oversold. It's just crazy that these places, like, they oversell in their tickets and stuff,
Yeah. Oh, question, Anthony. You said that you were seeing How to Train Your Dentist over the weekend.
How to Train Your Dentist.
These guys. All right.
Wait. Rich, explain it.
So we have a group chat going on, and Anthony goes, "Hey guys, I think I'm gonna go see How to Train. Yeah, HTTYD." And I'm racking my brain over here, guys. I have no idea. I'm like. And after just like an hour, I think, of pulling my hair, I was just like, can someone please tell me what HT? So now they go off with how to train your dentist. It's just
How to train your dog.
Yeah, I mean, I got the message loud and clear after that, but I felt a little, I guess I just completely forgot because I think in my worldview, it doesn't feel like that long ago that I saw How to Train Your Dragon. Like my son, we watched
Same
it,
for me.
So I've seen it within the last 5 or 6 years. So I didn't know that there was a need for another one.
It's a live action version of the animated film, and it's very, very closely linked to the animated film. Apparently, did you watch it, Anthony? I haven't seen it.
So that was the plan with my group of friends, but we ended up not being able to go and see it. We just got caught up in our own stuff, but it was the plan. But by the time that time kind of rolled around, we're too tired from just
living.
Yeah,
You're
just
tired of
man.
living.
Just living.
Yeah.
But it is a plan. I do want to see it. I mean, maybe I could go and see it tomorrow because I don't work tomorrow. Tomorrow is Juneteenth, and since it's a federal holiday, the bank follows the federal holiday, and so we all have it off.
Awesome. Cool.
Awesome.
You got that.
Awesome.
You have tomorrow off as well, Rich, right?
Yeah, actually, I got a sweet 4-day weekend because of my son's graduation on Friday. So,
well, you should be finishing school up soon, right?
Next Friday is the
all right, man.
last day.
Yeah, there you go. The kids down in South Florida, they've been done with school for a week or so now.
Yeah, but they go
week?
back a little earlier. I think you guys they go back.
Yeah, they start earlier.
Mid-August
Yeah,
or
they
something.
do. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what I've been up to. But we're a bit deep into the recording. Shall we talk about Andor season 2, episodes 1 through 6?
Just call it an episode. I think this was good. This was fun. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being on. Thanks for listening. Leave a review. 4 stars.
We'll make an Andor season 2 1 through 6 minisode. That is not. Sorry, guys. Let's start talking about that Rhydonium, boys.
No, you have to say it the right way, Dakota.
Let's start talking about the Rhydonium, boys. No, that was a bad one. I'm really good at redoing his lines, but I can't just create new lines for him. If that makes sense. But yeah, so Andor is back and potentially better than ever. A lot of people are saying that this is the best season of the 2 seasons. It's not a super. It is a high bar, but it's not an incredibly high bar because there's only one other season. What do you guys think of the start to this season? Some people are in the camp where the first 6 episodes are boring. Some people are getting on their knees and just bowing down. It's the best thing since sliced bread. What do you guys think?
I think it was pretty good. I would say the first. To me, it starts off a little bit stronger than maybe the first season of Andor. And the first season of Andor was really good anyway. But you have to get those characters established. But now that you have those characters that are established, it was able to go, a little bit, start a little bit stronger. We don't have to figure out who Luthen is. We don't have to figure out who Bix is because they were explained in that first season. I would say the first season crawled so that this season could run, not walk, but run. And it was solid. I mean, I liked the first 6 episodes, and there's a lot of parallels to things that happened in real life that I definitely picked up on in these episodes.
Rich, what are your thoughts?
So I think I would have been in the first camp after my first watch through because I think that I appreciated some of the relationships more. I mean, I love the series. I just think that it's difficult for me to just say the first 6 are slow because I think once you watch the whole thing on second rewatch, and of course I did a third rewatch, but all the interactions are so, what's the word? Pregnant. There's so much to them that you don't even know until you finish the series. And then you go back, and now these moments, the way they're playing off each other, the moments between the Imperial, the ISB, and kind of that dance that's going on there, even the dance between Dedra and Cyril's mother. I mean, everything, like, once you know more, just becomes... They did such a great job of setting the groundwork for the series to have a really impactful end. And I mean, that cutaway scene from the wedding, is just... It's amazing how they made that just be something that was so... Even though I had already watched it, I was on the edge of my seat again.
Yeah, so you're talking about the cutaway to the wedding, specifically in episode 3. I'm assuming it's the scene where everyone's dancing,
yes.
Correct? Yeah, so that's such a fantastic moment for me, and that was like a big wow, I can't believe they pulled that off. So there's a couple things happening all at once. It's the climax of several plots within this 4 BBY setting. So it's like a little over a year since the first season took place. And, Andor, Bix, Brasso, and Wilmon are on the run. They're living on this agricultural world, being mechanics, and they're basically just hiding away from the Empire while also doing Luthen's bidding. Andor's off on like a side job for a bit of this first 3-episode arc. And it all comes to a head, where the Empire catches up to them. Brasso ends up dying, and they leave that planet. All the while, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening with Mon Mothma at the exact same time, or we assume it's the exact same time. It could be different time periods, but whatever. And what's fantastic about the way that they did that was they used the music of the dance. So there's a bunch of stuff happening with Mon Mothma. She doesn't want her daughter to get married to this thug's son, basically. But she's young, she's dumb, and she thinks that she's in love, and, she's going to go full steam ahead with this marriage. And on top of that, the integrity of, or the secret of the rebellion and her, funds that go towards it are about to potentially be dried out in the open, as her friend is now ready to... He's not getting that end of the deal anymore, and he's starting to wonder when he's going to get his cut, and it's starting to get agitated. You could see he's like sweating for most of this like wedding arc, and Luthen basically tells Mon that we got to kill this guy, no amount of money is going to fix this problem. This is going to keep coming back to bite us. And to drown out her sorrow in, this childhood friend who has to be killed to pacify this issue, she literally just drinks and starts dancing. And it's such a fantastic scene because you could see there's no joy on her face. But when you watch the trailers for this, you're like, wow, Mon's really getting down at this party. But when you see the context of what's happening, it's so fantastic. And that music that they play, with the droid, the droid that's DJing the party, is also used diegetically. So diegetic music is in-world music that you hear, but also works as the score for the episode. They use that diegetically at the end with Cassian as well. So the intense upbeat music, while, they're on the run, his friend has just been murdered. And the look on his face, mixed with Mon dancing super chaotically and drinking heavily. It's just such a fantastic build-up to that last episode.
Right. It's almost like the emotion is kind of matched there. I mean, sure, you have Cassian that is mourning the loss of his friends, but then you also have Mon Mothma that's kind of mourning the loss of, her daughter in a sense, that she's being married to somebody that, she didn't want her to get married to. But dude, that moment was so strong, and it left me like, wow, this is intense. It's crazy. I actually, a little side note, and I don't know, and I hadn't really realized this in the first season, but then when I looked at the cast, so I don't know if you realize, but the actress that portrays Mon Mothma actually does the voice for Moira and Overwatch.
I did find that out online recently.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
I
that
thought that
was
was pretty
pretty.
cool.
I was crazy, and then like when I thought about it, I was like, I see the similarities in a way, like the look. But I thought that was like a little neat aside thing. But man,
It's actually like, leading into that a little bit, it's such a weird contrast because this is such a fantastic visual actor, like her presence on screen is crazy. And that usually doesn't always translate to voice actors. So it's cool that she has that ability to do both, Like there are actors who do both.
Right.
Mark Hamill is an actor who's very famously both on screen and, just vocal. But it's cool that there's others in Star Wars that do that too.
Yeah, yeah. In the first 3 episodes, you get something that you just don't see in Star Wars. And you have like an Imperial officer that is, he proceeds to try to assault Bix,
Yes.
and you don't see that in Star Wars ever, really,
We haven't, yeah.
And
there have been like they've kind of teased the idea of it,
it's been skirted around, but it hasn't been shown in this capacity. And I thought it was crazy because, I could very much so see the Imperials, pretty much abusing their power for stuff like that. And it's insane. Like, I was like, man, this show is powerful in more ways than one, and it shows a part of Star Wars that, some people, you get caught up in the mysticism of the larger part with the Jedi and stuff, but you don't get the common man, and this is what you get.
You don't get the nitty gritty,
right?
As
right.
often as
for me, when it comes to Star Wars, it doesn't get any more nitty gritty than Andor and Rogue One. It really, this season, at least in this first part, it really just blew my mind. Something else that I really got that kind of blew my mind was Gorman, and Gorman drew like such a heavy parallel to World War II Europe. Like, I mean, you could place Gorman, it could be a European country, and like think of the way that they dress, and like think about the way that it was intense for them, that they're trying to build up this like rebellion. I can imagine this being Europe before the war was in full swing, before the invasion. This is what Europe in that time period was in the 30s, and yeah, man, it really blew my mind how they were able to do that. Because with Star Wars, a lot of times we get the Western side or we get the samurai side, but we never get that side. I mean, you get parts of it, but you don't get it as strong as you do in this show. Like the World War II influence that Star Wars has, and it's very much so, that's a huge part of Star Wars, that influence, and you get it a lot in this show, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, to tag along with what you're saying, it's funny because we've seen so many things that are Star Wars related. We've read Star Wars, we've seen comic books, and so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of Star Wars out there. But it's amazing that we're continually getting new vantage points and looks at the Star Wars galaxy that we probably didn't think that we needed or wanted, but just expanded not only the lore, but like the reality of what's at stake. And as that comes into the fore with Gorman, yeah, there's a lot of parallels you can make with Gorman. And basically, it's not just like World War II and all that. It's pretty much every oppressive government, every authoritarian regime trying to put another party down. And that has been the case like throughout history. And I think that they nailed that down with how the propaganda is being spread, how easy it is to, make the population dislike those people. Like with Mon Mothma in the Senate building, she was trying to curry favor with a bunch of different people whom she probably agreed on with certain bills in the past. But there was one senator who's even like, I don't think Gorman is a good thing to be vying for right now. I forget the correct wording, but basically saying like, I don't want anything to do with Gorman right now. That's a bad look for me. And, you just see everyone turning a blind eye to what's happening. And ultimately, we don't know what's happening with Gorman at this point. We don't really fully get it. I mean, we as the audience get it, but the people inside the show, outside of a few, have no idea that they're going to be mining for calcite in the near future. So they have no idea what's coming for them. They have no idea why the
destroying
Imperial,
the planet pretty much. Too, in that.
Which is what's going to happen. And they have no idea why the Empire have decided to make Gorman their enemy, but it's apparent that that's what's happening, and it is a really scary thing. But I want to take like a brief moment to like just talk. Sorry, Rich, you haven't actually chimed in on these two topics.
Yeah, So as I was listening to you guys talk about this, it just kind of made me think about a couple of things. So I don't think Andor works until now, and I was thinking, like, I think part of the reason we're enjoying it is because it's a Star Wars property, but it's not a Star Wars property, right? It's like Star Wars property that exists in this universe that we know very well, right? And if, let's say, you just started watching Andor and you hadn't seen anything else for some random reason, or even if you start watching Andor and you just go through Rogue One, right? You've got this universe that is, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but it doesn't, I don't think it would jump out at anybody. It's well done, right? But I think that why it's being so well received is because we feel a lot of, I'll just like kind of our Star Wars nerds over here. We feel like we've explored so much of the galaxy in one direction that we want to see it in another,
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Right? Because I don't like, this doesn't come out in 1977 and people are like, oh man, this is the franchise I'm getting into.
Okay. Yeah. I like that idea, that because, I see what you're saying, that like what may have appealed to audiences back then is different than what appeals to audiences now. So it's not necessarily playing to the times, but it is in a way.
I don't want to say encyclopedic, because you don't really, but I think the type of person who's going to like Andor is very well educated about the Star Wars universe, right?
From my experience online, a lot of people who had never seen Star Wars are watching Andor, and they're considering it. They're considering it like some of the best TV they've ever seen.
Well, I think so. What I think about Andor is that, yes, I agree that right now is the time for Andor to exist, but you couldn't have had Andor be the first thing to come out, because Andor is not a foundational series in the way that like the mainline Star Wars movies are. That's the foundation. Everything else is built upon that. You cannot, Andor would be telling a story about something that just doesn't exist. Now we know exactly what happens because what's happening in this show, So this is just something that is being built on the foundation of the greater storyline, in Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, if you will. But I also do agree that most people have some sort of idea about Star Wars, even if they haven't watched it. They know it exists. They've probably heard of Luke Skywalker. They've probably heard of lightsabers.
Definitely heard of
stormtroopers. It's hard to escape, even if you don't watch it. I could imagine you watching Andor without watching the mainline series and enjoying it, just in the same way that you can watch The Mandalorian without having watched the mainline series. And there's, especially like Mandalorian season 2, there's stuff from other series that it wouldn't mean much to you had you not seen it. But, it's definitely something that's really good. It's something that's different. I don't know. What would you call it? Is it espionage, the spy series that exists within the Star Wars universe? Like, it's not a Star Wars show. It's something else that exists within the Star Wars universe.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's hard to really pinpoint why it works. I think that you're both kind of right in the sense that it does build on everything that came before. And for it to even exist requires these other properties to have existed for ages. This is a prequel to a prequel, which in and of itself is a sequel to the prequels.
It's just a hard sell for like my 10-year-old, right? Like he has enjoyed everything Star Wars with me. We have our lightsabers, he's definitely knowledgeable about Star Wars in the way that most kids his age aren't. We played the Lego games to their just maximum, so he knows the most random of characters. And I don't think that I haven't had him watch it yet, but I don't think he would enjoy Andor, right? Like it's not the Star Wars he's looking for,
Yeah,
I love it. I love this show, but when I walk around work and I used to have an over-the-shoulder bag, but my chiropractor told me I needed to wear a backpack to balance the weight. So I have these Chewbacca, like the bandolier, right? But with hair, and it's really, you can use it in your car, but I use it as so I have these two Chewbacca straps, bandolier straps with the fur on my backpack at all times at work. I've got Star Wars stuff in my room. I teach Revenge of the Sith. Like, I'm known as the Star Wars guy. And I guess when I think of like Star Wars in that way, from the outside looking in, from the person who's not a big fan, it's just what's odd. What makes Andor great is that almost it doesn't scream Star Wars in the slightest. There's no Wookiees, there's no Jar Jar Binks, there's no Ewoks. And I honestly got to the point where rewatching it with the Bix story, when Bix was assaulted, I felt uncomfortable in a way that I don't want to feel when I'm watching Star Wars, which sounds like a childish, And then as I'm rewatching the Gorman plot, because I just think that these episodes are so packed with stuff that if you're not hyper focused, you're gonna kind of miss something. So that's why I also enjoy the rewatches, and to know what is going to unfold and see the seeds happening. Let's just look around for a second, right? And then you look back to the show and it's a bit startling. Like Anthony was saying, it is like so much of, you guys were saying earlier, the authoritarian playbook and how easily it's working. How you said the senators were so quick to I don't want to get the stink of Gorman on me too, instead of them all banding together, and how just the little things, the crime on Gorman has increased to 36%, and just all these rumors and the spin doctor stuff. It honestly scared me. I was kind of like, oh,
it's scary stuff.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And it's such a different feeling than I'm used to watching Star Wars. I mean, I know like when Han died, I lost my mind in the movie theater. I couldn't believe it, but I got over it. I was okay. I felt a little shaky after watching these episodes again because it's so real, right? Like Anthony said, it could be Vania or Estonia. I'm just trying to think of other countries I've never been to or can't really point to on a map that I know are in Europe,
Right.
Well, I mean, it's definitely.
I was thinking Poland or something,
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good one.
The thing is that the reason why I think that Andor is so important for the Star Wars universe is that, I understand, there is a discomfort when you witness these things on screen, but, we've always been told that the Empire is bad. The Empire is bad. The Empire is bad. But we're being shown how bad they are in this show. Mm-hmm. This is why they're doing what they're doing. We've only ever been told that they're bad. It's always been black and white. But why? Why is it? Show me some color. Show me why. And this is why. The show is showing why. And that these people are willing to put their lives on the line to do what they're doing. You don't have that whole rebellion that destroys the Death Star twice without these moments. There has to be a build up.
That's a great point, because little things that have led to the original trilogy stack up like dominoes, you can't have all of this that happens in Rogue One without all of this that happens in Andor. You need the Gorman I'm not going to say the M word because that's a spoiler for next week. We need what happens on Gorman to happen because that's what catalyzes the Rebel Alliance to finally form a united front. You know, right now the Rebels are a disparate, almost leaderless group of random bands of rebels throughout the galaxy. And we actually see in the first couple episodes of, I think episodes 1 and 2, we have Cassian going to Yavin 4 to meet up with a friend, and he comes into contact with 15 rebels that don't seem to have a leader. And
right.
there's huge leadership, huge leadership issues that everyone's fighting for leadership, and that's the problem with these rebels at this point. There's no organization, and that needs to change if they're ever going to defeat the Empire. And this is like Cassian's like wake up, like, oh wow, maybe these guys need some help. And yeah,
that was crazy. Like when you get that realization that he was on Yavin that whole time, that was insane. I was like, dude, what? We're there's about to be a battle there soon.
But a couple years.
That was insane. This season brings back a character that we haven't seen since Rogue One in Orson Krennic. And dude, I mean, he's such a good bad guy, man.
I really do love
I'm
him.
glad that they brought him back. Like, I am so happy that they brought him back because I definitely wanted to see that character again. He kills that character, man. And I loved his like Calkite ramble that he just goes on.
Oh yeah.
Calkite alternatives. Like
synthetic Calkite.
Yeah, dude, that was just so funny. That scene that when Luthen and what's his name again?
Clea.
When they were at that party and she's trying to get rid of that listening device, dude, it was so intense.
What a great scene.
And then they had Lonnie there. Like, it's like, oh, poor Lonnie's just in the middle of all this mess, man. This guy's just trying to survive at this point.
I know. Poor Lonnie. I wonder if he'll make it. Yeah, Ben Mendelsohn returning to replay Orson Krennic a couple years prior to the events of Rogue One. Fantastic stuff. Him being the I keep saying the word catalyst, and I think it's because the prequel novel to Rogue One is called Catalyst. So I'm that's just like in the back of my head whenever I'm thinking of these characters. So anyway, he is the catalyst to why the whole Gorman front is happening. He knows that the Empire needs the Calkite, the synthetic Calkite, the Calkite alternatives. He needs all that. But it can only be mined via, basically destabilizing Gorman. Yeah. And I love that scene where he brings in certain ISB members and other people within the Empire to just have a little brunch, have some cakes, while talking about how they're going to potentially kill millions. It's just a really great scene, really fascinating.
I think in that scene, that's one of the guys that's to me was one of the most chilling things when they were. Somebody asked one of the ISB guys essentially like, can't we just tell them that there's like a disaster coming or something and get them off planet? And his response is something to the effect of, we've seen that not work before, and generally it's just better to do away with the whole thing. And that means that they've done it on multiple planets, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's what that was like. Oh my goodness, you've done this so much that you have freaking data on it, right? Like, you can't do something twice and have data on it, right? You have to do something like 5 times, minimum, I would assume. I don't know what the number is, but then it's just like, how many more planets have they done this to?
Oh, they've done it to a bunch. And I did do a little bit of research on like other planets that they've done that to. So in response to someone online who thought it was like a dumb thing, like, there's a bunch of like haters online for everything. This one I want to bring attention to because it was pretty astronomically stupid. There was absolutely no reason to militarily occupy Gorman. It was one of the dumbest things Palpatine could have done. The Gormans were perfectly happy with their planet and its industry. The Emperor could have simply mined the material needed and left the Gormans alone. Why would he bring this kind of negative attention for no reason? Blah, blah, blah. So I quote tweeted that. And I'm like, it's perfectly clear. The Empire needed the calcite found in Gorman's core. The Empire makes it very clear that the mining of said resource was to destabilize the core and lead to an ecological collapse. But Palpatine needed it more than he believed the Empire needed good PR. And I explained that it's not the first time this has happened. In the book A New Dawn, the Empire mined thorolite on Cinda, causing the core to nearly collapse. In Rebels, we learned that Geonosis was completely sterilized to cover the construction of their Death Star project. In Rogue One, we learned that the Empire destroyed Jeddah City partly to cover their extraction of Kyber from beneath the city. And there's also Ilum, which is that's where the Padawans used to get their Kyber crystals. They used that planet, they mined it out, and basically a big fissure erupted on the planet's surface, causing the planet to start splitting in half, and they had to hold it in place. And that planet, Ilum, later became Starkiller Base in the sequels. So it's something that the Empire is well known for doing. So the idea that and they kind of do explain why one of the ISB guys basically says, Partagaz, he says they have a strong Senate presence, this is a strong planet. They're not going to go down lightly. So they need to create this false image of Gorman to the rest of the galaxy to make it okay for them to do what they believe needs to be done. And it's just crazy. It's so sick and twisted, but you could totally picture the Empire doing that because they need what they got, and there ain't no more calcite alternatives elsewhere.
Nope. So something else. So two characters that we also get back from the first season is Cyril and Deidre. And in this one, they're kind of there's some romance there, So what did you all think about that dynamic? It was definitely kind of awkward.
Yeah, they have a very healthy relationship, it seemed. They both respected each other's boundaries very clearly. Yeah, no, it was very good. I'm happy for Cyril, very happy for Deidre. They both look and feel very happy in their new roles. No, it's the weirdest relationship I've seen in Star Wars, period. This is weirder than when those frog people, that frog lady with all her eggs, met up with her husband and just touched heads at the end of that Mandalorian episode. This was bizarre. And it's so clear that Deidre is not a psychopath, but a
sociopath.
Sociopath, yes.
Yeah.
She's sociopathic. She has no emotions. She has no feeling. Everything she does is to get ahead, to move up a ladder, and Cyril just happens to be present and isn't moving out of her way and is willing to help her out.
Right.
So she's cool with it. Yeah.
And she's even holding a secret from him, and he's helping them out, locate these rebels on Gorman.
I actually really do feel bad for Cyril.
I do too. Honestly,
he's someone who clearly needs a lot of structure in his life, and he's gone about it the entire wrong way. And he wasn't wrong in that, in the first season. He wasn't wrong for wanting to do his job correctly, to go apprehend Andor and all that. He just was barking up the wrong tree with the wrong people. And then he got involved with the Empire, and the Empire feeds you all these lies about, this and that. And it's so easy, as it's explained, just by watching the Holo News. It's so easy for you to be brainwashed by all the propaganda. And Cyril is conscious that there is propaganda being perpetrated about Gorman in this season. He knows that what's being presented on the news isn't what's actually happening on the planet, and
right.
It's such a fascinating concept because he's undercover for these people, which does make him complicit. He knows that the Empire is doing something and they're trying to incite a rebellion on this planet for some reason, but he doesn't know why or how it's going to play out, and I feel bad for him because he thinks he's doing the right thing for the right cause. He still truly believes that the Empire is what's good in the galaxy and that the rebels are terrorists. And with that mindset, it's hard not to fault the guy. But
right,
he is an antagonist, it's hard to it's hard to make that balance. So I feel bad for the guy.
He's an antagonist. He is an antagonist, but he's also a bit of a patsy, He is definitely the type of guy that would be set up to be a fall guy, that the Empire would leave him out to dry.
And what we'll find out, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's so easy in the Empire for there to be fall guys. You think of all of these big players, like we saw in Rogue One that Orson Krennic, the guy who basically designed the entirety of the Death Star, he ran the project. He was a fall guy for Tarkin. Tarkin stepped in.
Yep.
And there is a hierarchy in the Empire, but there's no loyalty.
Yeah, there's a lot of stepping on backs in the Empire.
There's a lot of stepping on backs, backsteppers. Yeah, there's a lot that this season, even these first 6 episodes, you can read into. And what's amazing is the timeliness about some of the stuff in the first couple episodes. We have within America right now a big issue of being for or against illegal immigration, people being deported back to their countries or detained, whatever. Say what you will about that. This show was filmed several years before any of that was mainstream news. We've had deportations for illegal immigration for years in America, but right now it's coming to a head because whatever. But within Andor, it's so fascinating because these are the characters that we love. These are the characters that we're rooting for, and they are the illegal immigrants on this planet, and the Empire is technically the lawful government that has the right to deport them because they don't have their papers. And it's such a timely contrast to our real world discussion, on the political landscape, because they didn't know that this was going to be an issue when the show was coming out, but it kind of just fits perfectly in the narrative. And I think that's part of why this show is so timeless. You guys were saying that it needed to be released at this point in history, at least in terms of Star Wars, for it to really resonate. But I think the actual show itself, even if it didn't focus on Andor and wasn't a prequel to Rogue One directly and all that, it would, using these themes, it's kind of timeless, it's always going to be relevant to some degree. And I think that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a great show. It's sad that we lost your boy Brasso.
I love Brasso, dude.
Yeah, man. He was definitely that homie, that
he was the homiest
guy,
of all homies.
Yeah, that guy that you could rely on. He watched out. I miss B.
Oh man, B2EMO. I love that droid so much, and I feel so bad that they just leave B2EMO on that planet. I love that droid. It's my own pet. It's my own child.
Right.
Seeing them leave so unceremoniously, it kills me every time.
And you feel so bad because you do hear that depression. He wants to be with Cassian, and it's not that Cassian doesn't want him around. He knows that he's going to be doing dangerous things, and in a way he's kind of the last bit of memory of his mother, and if he lost
Marva,
if he lost him, that would be it. So it was definitely a good call on that front. Something that we didn't really talk about was your boy Rhydonium.
wait, what were you gonna say, Rich, about B?
I love B, and I was so sad that he had to be left behind. I know this is Star Wars and it happens all the time, but man, just he had to arrive at that exact second for them to get off of there, talk about fortuitous. I mean, it's a big galaxy, and he pulls up just right at without really kind of knowing about it, which is kind of all that more, right? He just hears blockade or whatever from Clea, and then he immediately goes there, right? But
well, it's interesting. It's going to be a major plot thread in the next couple episodes. But, the idea of Cassian as a messenger, he wants to send a message to Bix on this planet. He finds out, he can't send a message, so he's going to go there directly. And he is the messenger, for all of these little adventures. He's the one relaying all the information to all these parties that eventually culminates in A New Hope. And it's so good the way that they wove that idea into the show. And we're going to talk more about specifically him as a messenger next week, because I think that is a really fascinating discussion. But yeah, going back to B2 emo, I feel so bad for that guy. He just B's 2 emos, and that's he's just so sad.
And you know, you guys talk about Saw. You know, this guy. I mean, can I ask a question? So, do we believe that the mechanic in training was working with the Empire? Is that a real, or did he just make that up and then his friend agreed?
What's his friend's name? I think it's Two Tubes or something like that. I think that's actually like his name in the character encyclopedia. Yeah, I don't think that this guy was. It came out of nowhere, and I don't think Saw would have humored this guy like making Rhydonium for as long as he did, if he was gonna kill him anyway. And I don't think that he planned on killing him. I just think that he saw that there was a need for Rhydonium, and that Wilmon couldn't leave because clearly Wilmon didn't think, like, there was some apprehension when Wilmon said he thinks he's ready for, this production.
Yeah, essentially he's like, he's good enough, like
there. But with Rhydonium, there's
no margin of error.
There's no margin of error.
Yeah,
you're gonna blow up the whole party. So yeah, it's really, I don't personally think that he was a Empire spy.
Right, like maybe he just needed a reason to kind of kill him in that moment. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that like he realized, okay, this guy's not, he's obviously can't do the job, and it's like we kind of put ourselves in a hard spot because we can't let this guy leave because he knows too much, and he's the best bet for this job, so I guess he's going to be coming anyway. I find that process of extracting Rhydonium so fascinating. Like that, just it's a 8-step process, dude. Like, and it looks so cool. Like, just like kind of like, the rotating of like the machine, and it, to me, it looked awesome. Like it looked so complicated, and it was a really cool like scene to have. And man, your boy, I know your boy is just cracked out for Rhydonium. No wonder why he's insane. Saw? So
in Rogue One, we all thought that he was like huffing oxygen, like we thought that he was just like ill and he needed the inhaler. Turns out he's just been huffing Rhydonium.
Your boy is, I mean, it's a drug to this man. He's just
it's a drug.
Cracked out on him, man.
How is he now? How does he weather it? I mean, and then like Wilman, did he just like get peer pressured? Like, it sounds like it's the worst thing in the world you would ever do to yourself.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like, hey, take a hit of this joint, right? It's like, I don't know, hey, here's some ether. I don't, it seems insane.
Right. It's a very extreme high. Yeah.
Give me some
he
spice,
just tells Wilmon, like, just accept it. Wilmon just looks like he's in excruciating pain, dude.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and Wilmon's like so surprised. Like after he starts releasing the Rhydonium, Saw just like kind of like goes up to him like, "Oh, how I've missed you," and Wilmon's like, "What on earth? How are you doing this?" Because Saw just went on this tangent about how like your skin starts to itch, and you start feeling your skin crawl like it's alive, and like as a kid, like he got like hooked on this stuff. You're asking how he weathered it. I think it's just tolerance. Like you give a kid a taste of bourbon, they're gonna hate it. They're gonna spit it out. It tastes gross to them. There's no way that they're gonna enjoy that because it just tastes like spicy and bitter and all of that. But as an adult, you grow tolerances to certain things. Now, bourbon tastes fantastic to me. It feels really good going down burning. The burning sensation is part of the fun of it. And I think that is what we're experiencing with the Rhydo.
Yeah, man. It's like at this point, are you going to use this for starship fuel, or are you going to like just huff it all?
Yeah, I don't got an answer for you.
Everybody else will use it for starship fuel, but Saul's just going to use it for his own weird reasons.
Yeah, no, it's bad. I want to look this up, actually. Rhydonium. I know I've heard that, like, so many times before, like, in random things.
I mean, like, this guy could just be using regular spice. You know, what happened to good old spice?
It's probably not strong enough, man. Not that... It doesn't have that Rhydonium strength, you know?
Because, like, Rhydonium...
Because when you say Rhydonium strong, like, I mean, it sounds strong, but when you think of spice, I'm thinking of, like, maybe pepper, right? Some, you know, pepper, salt, you know, oregano, whatever. But, you know, you think of Rhydonium, that honestly doesn't even... Rhydonium sounds like... It sounds like an ore. It doesn't even sound like a liquid, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's crazy. I'm not too sure. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about?
I really liked Luthen and Clea in this arc. I feel like we've talked a little bit about them, and I appreciate that their dynamic is growing. We didn't really know what their dynamic was in the first season, and we still don't know at this point in the show, like, what their dynamic is. Are they related? Are they friends? Are they just partners for a long time? Could be any number of things. But I think it's really cool that they have such a professional relationship even on their downtime. You know, like, technically there is no downtime for them. They're on 24/7 because that's what it takes to run a rebellion. And they're running it from the center of civilization. They're in the hornet's nest while they're doing what they're doing. And it's so cool the way that the show uses them as axes. They're literally an axis. It's such a fascinating word, because you think of an axis, it's what turns in the center of things. It's what turns in the center of the galaxy. And so ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, they have determined that Axis is the one who's running all the shots. And they're partially right. He's one cog of the greater rebellion, but he is like a mastermind of what's going on in the galaxy, rebel-wise. And you think of another term that's used in machinery that's been applied to characters, like fulcrum. Fulcrum was given to characters like Ahsoka. Later it will be given to Cassian. And it makes sense that there's multiple fulcrums, but there's only one true axis. So a fulcrum is a pivot point on the spinning mechanism of the axis, you know? And these characters, Ahsoka, Cassian, and others, are fulcrums, basically. Like, they're pivots in this moving cog. And it's so cool the way that this is all being explored subtextually, but also like in real time on the show. And I think that it's just brilliant writing. It's so cool.
I agree. Oh yeah, and we also lose Senta, which she was kind of not around too much in.
Right.
Like, she was kind of here and there, but she ends up getting killed during that heist.
That heist on Gore.
Yes.
Gorman.
On Gorman.
Yeah, I felt bad. Like, Val clearly was in love with this person, and the moment she gets Cinta back, Cinta is, like, literally killed by mistake by some kid who, you know, thought he could do his own thing on the, like, as part of the rebellion. And that's why leadership is so necessary, you know? And talking about Gorman really quickly, the culture of this world was so fantastically realized. I am amazed every time it's on screen because it feels legit. It feels like a real world. And what helps it is that all the actors are French. They're not speaking French, but they're speaking an alien language based off of French linguistics, which is why it sounds like French, but you can't actually pick up any of the words. It's so well done. It's the cultural world building of Gorman, making it centered around these spiders who create weaves and silk that the galaxy needs, and then bringing in Cassian to kind of play onto that, because, you know, this whole world's ecosystem runs on these spiders basically, and he's playing a designer so that he can blend into this world's ecosystem. And it's, dude, the writing on the show is next level, and it just blows me away.
Oh yeah, and also something that I kind of wanted to just kind of cap this conversation on is PTSD. And Bix has that big time, with what happened to her in season 1.
With Dr. Gorse.
Yes.
Yeah. And actually these episodes cap that like plot line off really, really neatly. We learn a couple episode or like an episode prior to this that Dr. Gorse, the guy who invented the torture device or the torture method that we saw used on Bix in the first season, they want to embiggen this project. They want to get more people involved. They want to make a whole team involved in this interrogation process. So they give Dr. Gorse this brand new wing within the Imperial complex on Coruscant. And I just love that Bix, who is so distraught about this, gets the opportunity to get her comeuppance with this guy.
Yeah. And then Cassian just straight blows him up.
Yeah. What did you think of the PTSD, Rich? Like, what did you feel about this plotline with Bix?
Well, I think the first time, I understand that to properly show it, you need to do it over a little bit more time, but I was unsure where it was really going. But then the visit from Luthen, I think when I saw it the second time around, made it way more interesting. Andor's questioning of, well, if Luthen did that and he didn't tell me that, and I came home, he knew you would tell me, so he had to know that. He's always doing something for, and you could just really see Andor's paranoia, but I don't want to call it paranoia because he's right. I mean, he's...
Yeah, no, he's...
Pardon.
He is being paranoid, but he's also right. You know, you don't just get visits from Luthen. Mm-hmm. There's a reason.
So I thought that, again, like, it's just, I appreciated it way more the second time. I think I wanted to just kind of get to some big resolutions a little earlier than I should have the first watch through, right? So when I now know where everything was, watching it again, it really is paced well. I think the way they did it was excellent, and without spoiling too much for next week, right? Like, this PTSD arc is really important.
Totally. Yeah. So one last thing I do want to mention, because I do think that, you know, nothing is truly perfect. And if I could give it a criticism, I would say that the jumps in years for every 3 episodes is a little jarring. And there's a lot that goes unsaid between episodes that you just kind of have to pick up the pieces on and try to figure out. And this will come into, like, I think, like, technically next week, the jump from 3 BBY to 2 BBY is probably, like, the hardest jump for me in terms of, like, wow, I really wish there was more to this story. I wish they told all of those things that they're talking about.
You know they will eventually.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about the books. They teed it up so nicely for publishing, and their publishing is literally just finishing up the High Republic after 5 years, I think, at this point. And they're going to need new territory, and I think they're going right into Andor, hopefully soon. Because this is such a ripe area for... I just don't know that they can write it as well. I'm genuinely like, will they give us good stories in Andor, or will they not?
I think it can be done, you know.
It can be done.
It's tough, you know, when you're going from, you know, a big huff of rhydonium to, you know, spice.
Oof. Yeah. Speaking of which, Dune next week, boys?
Yes. Next week we shall be doing the last half of Andor, and, you know, that'll be capping off the series, because the series rolls right into Rogue One. Yeah.
I do kind of wish we, like you said earlier, I wish we hadn't done Rogue One and A New Hope so soon, because it would have been nice to go into it. Hopefully, like, in some future episodes, we can go back and, like, revisit certain things. I would like to do, like, a Rogue One and A New Hope rewatch after Andor. I know, Rich, you already did it, but I have yet to do it yet. So I really can't wait to, like, see how the story unfolds in a new manner, in a new light, after watching Andor. So it could be something we you know, do at some point. But guys, thank you for listening to us here for our 124th episode of Project Geekology. We hope you enjoyed our ramblings on the Star Wars galaxy as a whole. Please be sure to check out next episode, where we cover the final 6 episodes of Andor as they lead up to the events of Rogue One. We're excited to finally get to what I believe is probably the best couple hours of Star Wars ever produced. And yeah, Thanks so much for listening. If you want to check us out on any of our socials, be sure to click down into the show notes. You'll find us there. And yeah, boys, stay juicy. Like that Rhydonium that, Saw Gerrera's huffing and puffing. You need some of that juice in your life. And to do so, I think what you'd really need to do is, Anthony, you want to explain it to them? What do we need?
We need that strong Rhydonian, 5-star review. We want it to be so strong that it even knocks, Saw Gerrera back a few pegs and, just keep him coming for more. Yeah. Speaking about pegs, we never figure out how he lost his leg. Anyway, guys, this was episode 124. We shall see you, or you'll hear from us anyway, next week. Bye, guys. Long live the gentle lads.
Love it. Peace.